it's a huge honor to hear their stories and to be the one that captures those stories and be faithful to those people and honor those people in return for having shared it. But yeah, I just sat there so many times thinking like, wow, this is such a privilege to be carrying these people's stories in this video.
This is Down to Earth Conversations, where we hear from ordinary people who are helping to bring a bit of heaven down to earth. Kia ora, welcome to another episode of Down to Earth Conversations. I'm Andy Dixon, and thank you for joining me for another kōrero. Today we get to hear from business owner and filmmaker Dylan Jones. Dylan owns For Good Media, a film production company with a difference. Dylan focuses on those people who are doing good in the world, and he helps to tell their stories. He partners with organisations who are making a difference and provides great quality video to enable them to promote what they do and to harness support. We talk about his journey into film, how the company came about, and what it's been like to forge this path in a fairly cutthroat industry. We talk fear, creativity, storytelling, holy moments, and much, much more. This is episode 37 of Down to Earth Conversations. Here's Dylan Jones. Oh, kia ora, Dylan Jones. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be on here.
So let's just start by having you introduce yourself. Who are you? Where are you from?
Yeah, so I'm from Dunedin. Spent most of my time as a kid growing up, Dunedin, and further south, I studied at Otago University, which was, the experience that you can imagine it was. A lot of fun. And from there, I was in Christchurch for 8 years, making videos, involved in different ministries, and now I'm up here in Auckland, Tapaki Makaurau. Yeah.
Like you say, you've been doing filming in bits and pieces, and we'll talk about what your business is and stuff as we go through. But how did you get interested in that? Was it something you always wanted to do, or did it just kind of catch you at some stage? What's the deal with that?
Yeah, I think I've always been interested in different creative things. I've always wanted to be in a creative job ever since I can remember. It was either a writer or an animator, or I was at university studying theatre. So at that point it was being an actor. But then at the same time as starting university, that's when I became a Christian through one of the Christian groups there. And they said to me one day, they were like, oh, hey, like you do theatre, you'd be great for our creative team. Do you want to get involved with that? And I said, sure, sounds like fun. Jump in front of the camera and just have a good time making all these funny little skits and sort of Vox Pops videos. And at the same time as that, there was being in front of the camera, they were like, cool, we'll get you behind the camera as well. Literally my introduction to it was, here's how to press record.
Yep.
Go out and make some videos. And that was where it started. But I think that start, being at Otago, being involved with a Christian group and making videos that were pointing towards topics that were important or wanting to see change in society and culture, that sort of set the tone or set the DNA for what I love about media, how I approach it, and why I love doing it. But the actual quality of the content at that point, at that stage, was very, very much not going on my portfolio. You know?
Yeah. But that's cool though that you, like a lot of people who would be interested in doing it, their only outlet would be putting something up on YouTube and hoping that someone sees it one day. Whereas because you were connected in that church setting and they were kind of commissioning you to do stuff, you were able to do stuff and then have it seen or engaged with, which is pretty cool because I guess, I'm a musician and that was my experience of church music as well. I grew up playing music in front of people every week, whereas other people, they played music in their bedroom for years and years and years and were really good at it. But having that opportunity was really valuable. So, that's cool to hear. You've got your own company now.
Yeah.
Is that something you started fairly soon after you finished uni, or has that come at a later time?
Yeah, the company as it exists now only really started last year during lockdown. Before that was always sort of the plan at some point. Lockdown just fast-tracked that. for the what is that, like 9 years between first picking up a camera to starting the business. It was initially, making these fun little videos, and then when I was working with that ministry, part of my role was media based, and it was just this evolution from there. So then I ended up working at my church as the main media guy. And then God has just been taking me on this journey recently of actually really diving into business as a form of kingdom activity rather than just the necessity to be able to make videos, you know?
Yeah. Your business is called For Good Media, and my first introduction to it was someone shared something on Instagram, and I went, oh yeah, that sounds like it's got a title that I resonate with, so I'll go and see what this is about, and went in and had a look and read some of the blurb and went, oh, this is right up my alley. This is like resonates with me and why I do the podcast, and then I clicked on your promo video you had at the time, and then went, oh, there's me. And because I'd done some poetry at the Mini Justice conference that you'd done filming at, and so it was really weird going, oh, here's this guy resonating. Oh, look, I'm on his promo video.
Yeah.
But so that was kind of my first introduction to it. But everything I've seen from there, I've been really thrilled with. Actually, it's been, like I say, right up the alley of what this podcast is about, which is people using what they have to make a difference in the world. So do you want to explain what is For Good Media and sort of what's your kaupapa, what's your heart behind it?
Yeah, I still have a wee bit of a chuckle at the name because it is, in one sense, a very straightforward name. But there is a bit more meaning to it.
Yeah.
There's sort of three meanings. And the first, the very basic surface level, is that I make good videos. That's my goal, is to make videos that look good, achieve their goals. But then actually the layer deeper than that is that they do good, that they see good happen in the world, or they encourage people who are doing good things, or they empower people to get involved with good stuff that's happening. And then the deeper level is, that these will be videos that have an impact for good in the sense of time, for eternity, that people will be impacted for Jesus, that they'd come to know something of his heart. And that doesn't mean that I'm going to, like you would have seen on the website, I'm not like, these videos are for Jesus. It's more just like, hey, this is who I am. And in the process of working with me, that's what's going to come out. So it's not even necessarily just the videos that I make. It's actually what I hope is that as I'm working with different clients, I'm going to be bringing the kingdom to that space, not just in the outputs of the videos,
Yeah, so by you being you're bringing that bit of heaven into that space.
Yeah.
In some ways, the starting of the business kind of got forced on you a bit with the lockdown thing. Has it been a scary journey launching out on your own?
It has been the weirdest, scariest, most exciting journey. And when it's that kind of journey, I feel like that's a really good indication that God's involved. Because I remember I moved up to Auckland to do a postgrad diploma of communications. And when we hit lockdown, that just became an absolute joke. I was like, well, I can either waste my time continuing on with this course of study, or I can drop out and do what I was always going to do. I asked God about it, and he said, the answer that it annoys me the most. He said, the choice is yours, and I will bless whatever you do. It's not like my choices were to become a priest or a criminal.
Yeah.
They're all good choices, and God just said, I'll bless whichever one you choose. I'm like, no, God, you meant to tell me. You meant to say, do this or that. And so I chose, I'm like, okay, God, if this is you, then I'm going to choose the one that is the scariest, which is to drop out of uni after moving to a new city while we're in lockdown, and start my business.
Yeah.
And from there, like, that's just been the recurring theme. God's just like, great. He's come through on it. He's blessed that. Work started coming in while I was in lockdown, and it hasn't stopped.
Cool.
There's been moments where it looks like it's going to get quieter, and all these fears come rushing in, like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to find any more work. I suck at what I do. Classic imposter syndrome. And then God reminds me, he's like, hey, I called you to this, and I said I'll bless it. I haven't said I'm going to stop anytime soon. So I keep on wanting to try and make things happen myself, or to do business like a normal business person. But I just feel like God is saying, no, you don't need to do things the way the world says a business should look.
Yeah.
And so there's this weird tension of like, I want to be professional. I want to be good at what I do. And I want to bring, the kingdom into the business space. And yet God's like, yeah, we're going to do that. It's just not going to look the way that you thought it would.
Yeah. And yet, like you say, you don't have to be making videos about Jesus to make a difference. You know, and dare I say, you don't have to be making really poorly made videos about Jesus, which is what you often get in Christian spaces. So that quality and that heart behind it, I think, marry together really well.
Yeah. I always remember, like, it sticks in my mind so clearly. One of my pastors at my old church, he said to me once, being a Christian is not an excuse for poor quality videos. He said, if the content is so important, if you believe the message so much, then the quality of the video has to match that.
Yeah.
You can't say, oh, this content is so good, I just need to get it out, so I'm just going to film something, doesn't matter how it looks, the message is so important. He's like, no, the form is the function. Like, if you believe the message that much, then you better make sure the quality indicates that. So that's sort of been something that stuck with me. Yeah,
that's cool. Speaking of making quality things, you're working with technology, and technology doesn't always play ball. Often it's user error. I've recorded an entire podcast without turning my own microphone on. Have you had any of those kind of, looking back on it, funny moments or classic fails during your time?
Honestly, I think the not turning your mic on thing is something that everyone will have done at some point. It's sort of an initiation into working in media, right? Like, I've done that with an interview once, and it was during a conference, so it was a very time pressure situation. We were able to get a few moments with one of the speakers, record this 5-minute interview, and I looked down, and the recorder was flashing at me saying, I'm ready to record, which means it hadn't been recording the whole time. And I had to say to them, I'm like, hey, that was incredible stuff you just said. Thank you so much for sharing what was on your heart. Can you do it again?
Oh, got it. Were they gracious about it?
They were gracious. A little bit annoyed, I could tell, but they were gracious. It turned out in the end, it turned out all right. But there's the classic mic situation. There's if you've got 2 cameras and you don't record on one of them. I've shown up to a couple of shoots missing some very important gear.
Right.
But yes, you learn, and then in that moment you also improvise or figure out a solution.
Yeah.
Actually, it's I'll show you this. People won't be able to see it. But the wee tripod I've got for my mic, I don't have the right screw for it. And so I've actually just tied it up with string.
Oh.
That's just string. So I'm blaming that one on lockdown, but just got to improvise.
You do what you can with what you got, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I think definitely there's that focus on quality, but at the same time, you do have to make the most of what you've got and figure out how to get the most out of it. And not just go, oh, we've got rubbish gear, so it's going to be rubbish, but go, no, well, how can we do the best with the gear that we've got? Mm-hmm. And I mean, starting the podcast, that was very much what I was going to do. I had my phone and some lapel mics that plugged into my phone. It wasn't ideal, but it was okay. That's what I could afford. That's what I was going to go with. And it was, someone actually believed in what I was doing and helped supply the gear for it, which was pretty cool. So, it's nice when you can use the better gear, but like I say, you do what you can with what you got, even if it means tying it together with string, eh?
Exactly.
When you look back at all the different kind of projects you've been involved with over the years, what are some of the ones that stand out for you as being ones that impacted you personally?
Oh man, probably one of the biggest ones, and it's quite a recent one as well, which is cool. Last year maybe 2 months out of lockdown, I had a job offer come up, and it was very attractive. It was ongoing work, and it was also a pyramid scheme.
Nice.
And I remember I sat there, I looked at it, I was like, okay, first of all, is there any way this isn't a pyramid scheme? Because if it isn't, then I can probably take the job. But I just know I can't if it's not honest, if it's not,
Yeah.
it doesn't stack up in integrity, I can't take it. And that was the conclusion I came to. I was like, no, I can't take this job. But God, you know, I'm saying no to this, but I'm trusting you.
Yeah.
Said no to that. And then literally within the next day or two, I had a call from a guy from Tier Fund, and he said, hey, we've got the Justice Conference this year.
Mm.
Actually, that was, the full-on Justice
Yeah.
Conference, which was, you did the poem at the MIDI event
Yeah.
in Christchurch. Yeah, so this is like the big one. We've got the Justice Conference, and we're doing it online, obviously, because of potential lockdown situations. So we need to go and record all of the speakers and edit that into one big conference video. Can you do it? And working with Tier Fund has been a dream of mine for ages. To be able to do some stuff with them, it just really matches up with my ethos and what I love. So I just instantly, I was on board. Said yes. We got stuck into it, and I just loved it because I was bringing my skills to the table that was really making an impact, or making a huge difference for Tier Fund to be able to get this conference out there. But also, like, this is the other part I love about media, is the people that I get to meet. I got to sit behind the camera and hear from people who are really just blazing trails when it comes to justice. And the craziest one was just sitting there down at Ihu Matau with Panya Newton and hearing her heart for justice. And that's the cool thing, like we were saying before, things don't have to be all about Jesus, which a lot of the Justice Conference is. It's awesome. But Panya is not, she's on a different faith journey. And yet we can sit there and hear real world experience of justice that looks like Jesus,
Yeah, and that thing of, like, one of my hearts behind this whole podcast has been that actually the church doesn't have a monopoly on goodness. That there's goodness out in the world, and there's people out there doing that. And as a church, we should be finding that and jumping on board with that. Or if it's not there, then pioneering it, but not going, well, it's only good if it's part of the church, that there's actually real goodness going on all around the place if we just open our eyes up to it.
Yeah, and I think part of that as well is, not seeing it as point scoring for the church.
Yeah.
It's not like, hey, we're doing these good things to basically increase the reputation of the church. It's like, no, I don't think Jesus meant that.
No.
He's probably more caring about the people that it affects rather than the image of the church.
Yeah. One of the videos I saw of yours recently was a trip you did to Mozambique. What was that like for you?
Oh, that was another. I always go to say it was a dream come true, but then I feel the need to clarify it was the beginning of a dream. It was the start of a dream, because telling stories like that of what's happening outside of our little sort of microcosm here in New Zealand, telling stories of hope or of places that need hope that we can pray for and be involved in, is something that I would just love to do more and more. So going to Mozambique and telling the story of a people group there who came to know Jesus, I think it was probably 20 years ago, and seeing where they are now, and how that movement has just absolutely exploded. Yeah, like I said, that was the start of a dream, and pretty crazy that was, I think, like 6 or 8 weeks before lockdown started to happen all over the place.
Right.
So, but just to go there to hear the stories of all these individuals, but then they're also telling the bigger story as well. It's a huge honor, I think, to hear their stories and to be the one that captures those stories and be faithful to those people and honor those people in return, for having shared it. But yeah, I just sat there so many times thinking, like, wow, this is such a privilege to be carrying these people's stories in this video. Yeah.
I noticed when you look on your website, you're really big on talking about being a storyteller, telling stories. And I guess there's a couple of different parts of that for you. There's the capturing those intimate moments, those one-on-one situations, but then there's faithfully then putting those all together to tell the bigger story. What is it for you about story that really grabs you?
Part of it's just the way that I learn or the way that I receive information best is hearing someone's story,
Yeah.
as opposed to maybe a series of points or a lecture as such. So that's sort of part of it for me. But I think the bigger part of it really is story touches deeper than just information.
Mm,
It connects us in a human way,
yeah.
like I say, oh cool, this is someone's experience, this is what they've been through, and here's the lessons, or here's the themes, or here's
Mm.
the impact that has had on them, that we can then take from, or we can learn from, or we can realize what our part can be to get involved or to impact that situation.
Yeah, I really like that. I think for me, seeing the kind of stories that you're telling or the ways that you tell them definitely is that human connection. It's that here's some people doing good in the world. Let's help them tell their story. So
Mm.
it's not just, hey, let's promote their business, let's make an ad. It's actually, no, people need to hear this story. And that's when I watch your videos, that's how they come across, that you're actually sharing someone else's story. And I guess it must be a real privilege to be the one who gets to capture and then pass on that story to others.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It's one of my favorite parts is when I am on a project and I realize, cool, I'm in that space, that's what I'm doing. I just absolutely love that. Yeah.
As you talk about your film and your creativity and stuff, uh, I've observed over the years in the church that different people have a hard time of reconciling how their creativity and their faith go together. And for some, it's I'm a Christian and I'm also an artist, or I do film. For you, is it separate like that, or is it sort of all bound together, like your faith and your creativity are all enmeshed together?
Yeah, I would say they are very much tied together, but for me it's been this journey of redefining creativity. I think in the early days while I was studying theater and just getting into video stuff, I would have used the language of creative and not creative in the sense of artistry,
Yeah, right.
the
Yeah,
arts. I was creative because I studied theater, I did stuff with videos. And I would have said that someone studying accounting or marketing is not creative because they're not doing an artsy sort of thing.
yeah,
But it's been a big journey of realizing actually, no, creativity is something that we all possess inherently because we're all created by God in his image. If God is the creator and we're created in his image, we carry that aspect within ourselves as well. So if that's the case, how do we define creativity? I would say it's bringing new things into the world. It's being innovative. Yeah, it's those are probably the big things to sum it up, and that could be applied to anyone and everyone. Especially when it comes to this whole idea of the whole point you're doing this podcast is like what are people doing, and how is it impacting the kingdom? I think when you look at it from that sense, it's like creativity is more about starting stuff than it is about being artistic.
yeah, right. Yeah, that's cool.
So yeah, and I'm excited. I've got a friend up here. She's a producer, and we're looking at starting a series of stories, and it probably in a sense similar to what you're doing with the podcast, just of people who have started doing something.
Yeah,
They're like,
cool.
great, here's an issue. What have I got? What can I do? I'm going to start doing it. I'm like, I would say that's more creative than
Yeah,
I made a cool video about my trip to Dunedin.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, for me, I guess I very much see what you've talked about, that actually we're all creative, and that for me, our creativity is a way that we express who we've been created as. That me doing this podcast is a creative thing, but actually parenting my children, needs creativity as well, because my goodness, it's hard sometimes.
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
and it's in those moments of creativity and finding solutions, and and all of that kind of stuff. That actually a lot of my faith is expressed in that way. That
Yeah.
it's not that I'm doing those things despite my faith or whatever. So yeah, no, that's really cool.
Can I just throw one more thing in there about that? As you're saying it, it's like, there's all these different moments where you do have to come up with solutions and be creative. And I think that changes the perspective of what is a holy moment. A holy
Mm,
moment isn't just confined to um, that big spiritual experience you had at church,
yeah,
or the awesome worship time you had in your car. It's like suddenly, if we're connecting with the heart of God through, creativity or being creative as an attribute that belongs to Him, suddenly those moments of creativity in parenting or creativity in just solution finding for all sorts of different issues,
yeah,
suddenly those can be seen as holy moments as well. You're like, oh, I'm connected with something of the heart of God here.
yeah,
Yeah, and I think that sort of, that's one way that I think it ties in with faith very, very strongly.
yeah. I love that. Where do you hope that things go with for Good Media?
Oh man,
You got dreams and plans for doing more stuff, bigger stuff, different stuff?
yeah. There's some big dreams, and I think the current challenge, or I think the constant challenge, really, is staying true to them, or staying on a path that leads to them, but also holding that with an open hand for God to change. If I've got this sort of dream at the moment, God may refine that, God may tweak that as we go. But there is this sense of staying focused on that. And I've recently just had a couple of cool opportunities come up, some really cool jobs with organizations that I've applied for, but have also been very upfront about the fact that I'm like, I really feel like God is putting something on business for me at this time. So uh, that's affected my ability to apply for those jobs. They're like, oh, we're looking for someone full time. I'm like, okay, I can either apply for that full time role, or I can trust God that this dream and this vision for business in the media space is something He's calling me into. So yeah, so currently that's the dream, is to grow a media production company that is bigger than myself. So having other people on board and everyone involved is doing what they love. There's definitely parts of media and the whole process of that I'm like, I would really rather not do that.
Yeah,
And there's people out there who will love doing those parts. So
yeah.
it's finding the right group of people with the same vision and the same heart, uh, able to be working in the spaces that they love, contributing to that overall ethos of for good and having a bigger impact than just myself.
Because I guess at the moment you've got to be a bit of a jack of all trades, don't you? Because you're it.
Yeah,
Whereas as you hopefully grow, you'll be able to go, well, actually, if I do this stuff that I love doing well, and then this person does this part that they love doing well, will actually be way more efficient and be able to cover more stories. And
yeah. The quality of what we produce will be better. The
yeah,
ability to do it will be better. Yeah. So in that sense, in the business sense, that's a really good thing that I see. But there's that tension of like, for a long time, I think I had this vision or this idea about business, and this is just my experience of being in ministry, that business was bad, and God has really, really been changing that.
in terms of that, if something's worth doing, you should be able to do it with a servant heart and not necessarily get paid well for it and all that kind of stuff. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. So the perception of Christian business people who were really successful and making a lot of money, I was like, the attitude was something along the lines of, yeah, but you're not being a good Christian.
Yeah, which actually, like you say, there are people who can do the business stuff well, and that actually means they can be generous, that they can bring
Yeah,
others on board and mentor them. They can do a whole bunch of stuff that they couldn't do if they were doing all these jobs for free, because they should be serving rather than earning.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. And if they're doing all these jobs for free, they're probably not able to do the best quality or as good quality as if they were focusing on some healthy business practices that fit within the kingdom as well. So
Yeah, it's been interesting for us going into business because, we give 5% of every sale away. And so for me, I'm going, well, the more we sell, the more we give away.
mm,
And so that gives me a real incentive to want to sell more, to actually do really well with the business, because then I get to be more generous, which I'm probably a bit like you, that in the past that hasn't been a focus of mine. And yet now I'm going, actually, no, that's something that I'm really passionate about now. And I'm not doing it just so I can get a bigger house and a flashy car,
mm.
Although I wouldn't say no to a bigger house. We've got five of us in lockdown in an 80 square metre unit
Yeah.
while we're trying to run a business out of it, and it's taken over the dining room and the lounge, and
Yeah.
we're doing what we can with what we have.
Exactly.
But
yeah.
But no, I totally hear you on that business thing.
Yeah. And it's a really cool thing, actually. I fired off an email to a guy up here who I've been following his business for a couple of years now. Incredibly well respected in the general media industry, but also hugely focused on humanitarian efforts and things about the gospel. So I just fired off an email to him saying, "Hey, I love what you do. You're a real inspiration to me, and yeah, I want my business to be like yours when it grows up." Not really. I was like, he may not respond. He may see that
Yeah.
and be like, "Cool, thanks for that." No response. That's fine. It was just a simple email. He gets back to me a couple of weeks later and he said, "Hey, thanks so much. That's so encouraging. I'd love to catch up with you and hear about your business." So this guy who has been a role model for me has now become a mentor.
Wow,
But
that's cool.
I just love seeing that it's actually possible to have a business in an industry that is pretty cutthroat. Having a business that, like, his top tip, his biggest piece of advice for me in that first meeting, he was like, always ask the Holy Spirit, always go to him, always follow what the Holy Spirit says. And I'm like, that is the worst business advice. Like,
Yeah,
I know it's true, but it's
from a traditional business point of view.
That's terrible. You would never read that in a business manual.
7 steps to success.
Exactly. But you look at the fruit of his business and you can't deny it, but it's because he was able to hold these two things. He's able to fully trust God, fully follow the leading of the Holy Spirit, and also be committed to a good, healthy, growing business.
Yeah, cool.
So that's sort of
that's exciting.
Yeah, bit of a role model or a way forward for me. Yeah.
Just as we wrap up, what do you want to be remembered for? What legacy would you like to leave with your business?
Oh, man, that's a big question. What legacy? That I'll be producing work that contributes to things that are still having an impact decades after I'm gone.
Yeah, cool.
There's a lot of media, I feel, these days that is quite disposable in that sense, or it has an impact for the next 20 years. If you're lucky, that's quite big. But I'm like, no, I'd love to be a part of a movement or a cause where my videos, they may not be watched for 30 or 40 or 50 years after I'm gone, but they're a part of the foundation of some really awesome change in the world.
Yeah, cool. Oh, thank you for your time. Thank you for chatting with us today about all that you do, and thank you for what you're doing to help to bring a bit of heaven down to earth.
Oh, it's a real honor and a privilege to be on this podcast, Andy, and to share a bit of my heart. So I really appreciate the opportunity.
Hello, heaven. Will I hear you whisper to come near?
I love the passion that Dylan has for telling stories, particularly other people's stories. I also love the attitude that if a story is worth telling, it's worth telling well. It's a great challenge to remember how precious a gift it is when someone shares vulnerably with you and how well you need to carry their gift. So thanks, Dylan, for your passion, your enthusiasm, and your commitment to do good in the world. Here is a blessing for you. Dylan, as you bravely let opportunities go by in order to continue working out your dream, may you find moments of wonder and confirmation that this path is one of value. as you hear and hold the stories of others as the precious taonga or treasure they are. May you continue to be inspired and encouraged to tell those stories with the utmost care and creativity. As you seek to tell stories of those who bring hope and those who need it, may you find yourself filled with hope for the goodness of the world, knowing that the small part that you play can and will make a difference for someone, somewhere, even if you never see the fruits of your labour. As you look to expand For Good Media to include other creatives passionate about doing good, may you find people who hear your heart, who see your dreams, and who can partner with you to make them a reality. May you be surprised by opportunities that come your way, taking you in directions that maybe you haven't even seen yet, you haven't even contemplated, but that move you towards the fulfillment of your dream. And lastly, through all the storytelling, videoing, producing, enjoyment, and hard work, may your passion and enthusiasm and heart for bringing hope to the world grow even larger, and may you know that even while being behind the camera, you are seen and you make a difference. Thanks to Strahan for the music and Rangi for the karakia. Join me next time when I talk to priest, protester, social activist and creative Sarah West. Until then, me inoi tātou.
E tō mātou matua I te rangi, kia tapu tō ingoa, kia tau mai tō rangatiratanga, kia mea te tau e pai ai ki runga ki te whenua, kia rite anō ki tō te rangi. Homai kia mātou ai nei, he taro mā mātou mō tēnei rā. Muro mātou hara, me mātou hoki e muru nei I o te hunga, e hara ana kia mātou. Aua hoki mātou e kawea, kia whakawaia, engari whakaorangi a mātou I te kino.